that particular time, your brain is just as functional as a person in the world, because it has all the receptor sites, all of the parts, etc., and it does work. It's just, of course, the baby does not have language, etc., It doesn't have to like around 3 years old. But so that is the basic neuron. Is that clear? Can people see that pretty okay? Okay, those are what you call brain cells, the basic neuron. The white part, the soma, is like the body of it. You know, you have the nucleus, the axon hillock, and what the axon hillock is for is this. I don't get into all that. But it provides for an electrical discharge to run down that long part, which is called an axon, out into what they call the terminal button. And those particular parts that look like these little button things, they actually connect or attach to other neurons, the body, or to other dendrites. And these things travel so quickly that it is not funny. I don't know if you can imagine what it takes to actually raise your hand. It's incredible, the speed at which these neurons actually communicate with each other to allow you to do that. And even when you used to have this thought that when you damage them that, they can't replace each other, but there's what they call plasticity in the brain. What that means is that if a certain part of it is damaged, like you have, I'll show a picture, but you have equal hemispheres. It looks like a walnut. You crack a walnut, you crack it so it doesn't break apart. The two halves look kind of like something that's joined by a section. In the brain, that's the corpus callosum, and information passes back and forth through there. But most people use their left brain for hearing, for doing things, and the right brain is like a standby in case something happens over here. So if something does happen, the dendrites and stuff can actually instantaneously shoot across your brain, inside your brain, and make connections with another neuron for the health and preservation of your brain and of your function. So that's the basic neuron, and this is how, I talk about how that white part is like the little button at the end of it. There are these neurotransmitters. These are chemicals that actually pass this little narrow gap, they call it synaptic gapping, connect with another neuron, either on the dendrite of the body. It's very important, those neurotransmitters, because that's how it communicates. Your thoughts become molecules and chemicals. Fact. Because your thoughts don't originate in this meat up here, does it? Your thoughts are actually out here somewhere. And those chemicals, those molecules are symbols of your thinking, of your feeling, of this, that, and the other. You're seeing, your sight. They are chemical messages, and that's really incredible. Neurotransmitters, you have like acetylcholine, you have dopamine. Anybody ever heard of these kinds of things? Norepinephrine, noradrenaline, epinephrine, adrenaline. Adrenaline, that thing, gets you all juiced when, spider fight response, you get all shaky and nervous and that kind of thing. Serotonin, I'm sure you heard about that in regards to depression and that kind of thing. Melatonin. Now that's very interesting, very quickly. Melanin is what gives us our color. And I'm not being mean here, but the absence of color presents white people because they have lack of melanin. The melanin is also in every other organ of your body, just about, in terms of nails, hair, lungs, thighs, muscles, this, that. And actually, African Americans, we hear in stereo because of melanin in our tympanic membrane, etc. And other folks here in Monroe, it goes back and forth and back and forth. That's why we can dance because we dance. Some folks have a hard time. They got to practice real hard. Endorphins. Endorphins are kind of like really, really mellow type neurotransmitters that make you feel really good. I don't know if you've ever, for those who are into sports or dancing, what do you do to your physical exercise? You don't hurt yourself while you're doing it, feel pain. After you do what you do, you feel a little bit of euphoria. Those are endorphins because it makes you feel high. And endorphins are almost equivalent of heroin. But our body produces. Our body produces other hormones, things like that, like benzodiazepam, which is Valium. Our body actually produces that. It gives us a sense of tranquility, but we don't get addicted to it. Anyway, so moving forward here, gamma aminobutyric acid. What that is that is a certain neurotransmitter that helps at the juncture of what they call your sensory motor perception, and you have these areas where it jumps the gas and helps things move forward. I'll just say it that way. Certain drugs, opiates affect endorphin receptors like heroin and LSD affect serotonin. Marijuana affects the hippocampus and receptors in that area. The hippocampus is responsible for what is called short-term memory. Like when you're a kid and you learn the ABCs, you sing that song over and over and over and over and finally you know what ABCs are. What marijuana does, it interferes with the hippocampus. It's totally screwed your short-term memory so it doesn't go into long-term memory, into the subconscious. I remember when I was young, you record this too. I remember when I was young, like doing things I do when I go to class high, when I was in high school, and man, I could not retain things. I'd be reading a book, get past first sentence, what did I just read? That's because the marijuana is interfering with my hippocampus, laying down memory. You have to have short-term memory before you have long-term memory. It's not very good for you anyway. Cocaine affects the receptors in the basal ganglia and the limbic system. And this is how your brain looks. Certain parts of the frontal lobe, motor cortex, sensory cortex. I'm rushing through this. Frontal lobe, Wernicke's area, Broca's area. These are all Broca's areas where you Broca's area is connected to Wernicke's area because one part, I have a thought. In order for me to speak, it has to go through Broca's area and Wernicke's area. And that's important. That's what the brain looks like. Top portion, bottom portion, left side, right side, mid-sagittal section. Neural nets and engrams. Cells are fired together, wired together. What that means is, the more you think about something, you create these what are called engrams. It's a bunch of cells that actually represent a color, an apple, an orange, the sky, the clock, the wall, the chair, the seat. They develop these ways in which you have that thought, and the picture of that thought will appear in your mind. It's incredible. So, if these things work, when you're doing math, when you're doing whatever, your homework, again, these are chemicals that help these cells come together and get real tight together so you can maintain that engram in your subconscious, okay? Then you have cells that don't die together, which means that the way therapy works is that you had a really difficult childhood, you have a lot of things going on, you go see somebody who's good, therapist. Over time, as you begin to talk about those things, you will become what they call mindful of it, in the sense that you should be taught that once you have a certain feeling that you sit back, you consciously bring it into your conscious mind and you work with it. The more you do that, you'll get that thing unconscious control of everything you do. Those neural nets, those engrams that represent that depression or that incident that represents depression, it starts to fall apart and you get healthy. And then the experience of the depression begins to lift and you feel better. But you have to have a consciousness about that and work with it. Okay, neuron pruning. All that's about is when we're born, we have so many things going on in our brain, stuff like that, that the more we think to become part of the world, the less we need certain types of neurons so that they can die off. That's all that means. The power of emotion. Possibly more neural connections than atoms in the universe. That's intense. In all the universe, and all the atoms in the universe, your brain is absolutely phenomenal in the sense of the billions and trillions of connections. One cell does almost 6 million things within the space of a second. It's phenomenal. I don't think we ever stop and wonder at who we are and how we function. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. It's one thing to actually, sit and be able to talk to you. My stomach is digesting, my heart is pumping, my blood is pumping, nutrients are going to the cells they need to eat, cells are rebuilding themselves. Just all this stuff happens without us even thinking about it. Trillions of things happen. So, it's incredible. Anyway, moving forward, emotions allow the brain to find the most important memories. There's a thing called the amygdala, and what that little almond-shaped thing at the end of your hippocampus is when you have a really, really intense experience that has emotions that are tied to it, your brain actually searches for that experience when you have that emotion. That's how we remember. I don't know how many of you can actually remember things that happened to you as a child that you still remember to this day, and it feels like it happened 10 minutes ago. That's what this is about. That's how this works. So, what is epigenetics? Okay, epigenetics. The word means above the control of genes. Now, we've all been told, right, that genes run our life, right? Not true. This field, epigenetics, which is proving that absolutely wrong. The reason I'm talking about this is because how many times have you heard that black and brown folks are genetically predisposed to violence, to being lustful, to being all these things, to being ignorant, to being dumb, to being this, that, that. How many of you been told that it's a genetic issue? Yes. That is a crop. It is not true because guess what? Genes are just blueprints. Meaning that, without getting into a whole bunch of stuff, Your experience is what actually causes genes to actually activate themselves to produce the protein that we need to do X, Y, Z. Because our body is a protein-producing machine. And our proteins are what give us our life, because proteins move, therefore we have life. Not to mention we have spirit that, innervates our life. But genes are just basically blueprints. What has to happen is you have to have, I don't have a picture of a cell, but a cell, people kind of have an idea what a regular cell looks like, right, in your body. On that cell are more than 100,000 what they call integral membrane proteins. What that means is just this thing that goes inside the cell, part of it sticks out, part of it sticks in, and makes contact with the nucleus where the genes are contained. There's what they call a receptor and an effector. The effector touches the nucleus, the effector is on the outside, and the effector's job is to read the environment, right? Whether it's something physical, whether it's something energetic, or another way to say it is spiritual. Okay? A thought can actually affect your body. If you think you're going to get a disease, believe you me, you can get it, because every cell in your body communicates with each other instantaneously without going, oh, wait a minute, I got to listen to my brain, or I got to listen to my stomach. No. When you have a thought, because it is energy, it affects every cell in your body, because your cells eavesdrop on the conversation that your body is having. So, if you have a stimulus or some kind of something happen environmentally, and the receptor receives it and reads it, goes into the cell, to the effector touches the nucleus, and then it says, okay, I need to produce some calcium to heal a broken bone, right? So the cell contacts the effector contacts the gene produces the protein that produces the calcium to heal the break. So, we are not genetically predisposed to that. What happens is the way we are treated from 4.5 months in the womb, being born, living where we live, under the conditions that we live under, being bombarded daily with rapes, comments, microaggressions, oppression, this, that, and the other, not eating. Yeah, that does affect your cells. And it does affect the way in which your cells move things to the subconscious so that you don't have to think about that stuff. But it's there. So moving forward real quick. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and ask. The wonders of your cells, the cell membrane, nucleus, IMPs, I kind of talked about that. Do genes control life? No, it's your experience that controls life. It's your experience that activates the genes that produce the proteins that control life. Genetic determinism, what that is a guy named Darwin. Everybody knows, heard of him kind of? Dude's a thief, man. He stole all his stuff from this cat named Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck and this guy named Dr. Wallace. They were like, in old days, because they was poor, they wasn't worthy to be in society, so he kind of like stole his stuff and usurped it. And the only reason it became famous, does anybody know the rest of that, the title to his work?
You're talking about Charles Darwin?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he's a thief, man.
The Origin of Species?
The Origin of Species, but do you know the rest of the title? In favor of the favorite races or something like that. That's why they jumped on it, because it separated Caucasians from the rest of the world. It said, we are the ones, y'all ain't much of nothing. I was going to cut it, that's cool. But that's exactly what it did. But Charles Darwin was just, being complicit in racism worldwide. White supremacy worldwide. That's what that was about. So he created a thing called the central dogma. What he was saying is that DNA goes to RNA. When I said that the effector affected the nucleus and it produced the protein, what it does is it produces RNA, and RNA is like a little, it's called ribonucleic acid. It's a type of DNA, but it's RNA, that actually creates the protein. So it says DNA, RNA, protein, and then the protein does whatever it needs to do in terms of its talking, walking, digesting, seeing, eating, laughing, all that kind of stuff. Proteins are responsible for that on a certain level. So with that, what that says is, when you're born into this world with the central dogma, you can't do nothing else. You're just totally at the mercy of your genetics.